everyone. So, as Łukasz actually said, my name is Zbigniew, but to be more international, we're gonna say, you can call me ZB. That's gonna be faster for you, and especially on after party, it's gonna be much simpler for you to pronounce it. And also, there's one truth, that Sylius in Docker was not well maintained, let's say, for a couple of years. And what actually happened is there was no person dedicated for it. And we created the very special role because Sylius is working in a holacracy. And we created the Dockerizer role, which is basically states that I'm a person who's in a Dockerizer role, is responsible for everything regarding the roles. So I'm kind of like a Batman, but my sign is like the Docker label on the issues and the pull requests and everything else like that. Wow. So basically, I put this very nicely title into the AI generator of an image, and that's very nice with it. It's a whale, and there's like the swan, and there's like relationship, and I really like it. It looks kind of like a music album, so I'm just gonna wait a little bit there because I want to talk to you about. I actually have one question for you. Who uses the Docker in your daily work? Can you raise a hand? Nice. That's very nice. Well, because I would like to ask. Actually, I asked myself a question when the Docker was introduced in the Sylius, because I thought, okay, I know that there is a Docker in Sylius standard, but was it like the first attempt? And we all know probably that the Docker first stable release was introduced in 2013 or something like that. And the thing is, well, in Sylius, it was actually introduced in 2016. And I guess the Sylius was created or founded in 2014. So it's 2 years after the foundation, we have first sign of a Docker in Sylius. So that's very nice. I would actually run through the years in when it comes to Docker-related stuff in Sylius and what's happened in a world. So we're gonna start at first thing, and the first thing is the Docker introduced in a Sylius Docker repository that is currently archived, but it's public for you. And what happened there? There's actually, well, in 2016, to be honest, I didn't know what programming is. And when it comes to the Docker and Docker Compose, they introduced solution was very weird for me. I mean, I saw the commits and I see there are some links, but because when I found out that basically the Docker networks was introduced in 2017. So before that, you had to create all of that workaround stuff to basically have your containers connected. And if you see in the Docker Compose, you can see that it came with Elasticsearch image, with Memcache, with Selenium. That's very interesting. And also the PHP, FPM, and the Nginx containers were separated. That's very important for the next stage. And we see there's also MariaDB, MySQL image, so that's important. Well, we can then have another step, another stage in the Sylius lifetime, the timeline. It's 2018, and in the Nuremberg, there was German Sylius hackathon. And there's very nice pull request created, which stated the Sylius strategy reimagined. And I would actually like to talk a little bit what was the strategy, because I created I basically created reverse engineering what happened in there. And this is basically the chart which states we had the Sylius Nginx and PHP FPM run on a supervisor base image on a separate totally repository that the link was on the previous slide and still available in the Sylius GitHub organization. And what happened there is we had also the Sylius Docker repository that had very interesting Sylius folder. And that was the place for you to create inside of the Sylius standard project. So let me let me introduce you. How would you like to create a project with Docker in Sylius 2017? 17, right? So you had the container registry, which you had to be authenticated and download the base image. Then you had to clone or create project from the Sylius Docker repository, and then inside of this Docker inside this repository, you had to create also the Sylius standard repository. That's a little bit complicated, I would say, but I guess it worked. I know that a year later, actually no, let me just get back. Because I saw that we had this on our Docker Hub account, and someone still like pulling the image. Like, please don't do that. This image has like thousands of security issues, and to be honest, in there it was like PHP 7.0 or something like that. Like, please stop pulling this. I don't know who's doing that, but you definitely, your project needs to be upgraded. Don't. What else? We can say another thing. Because in 2017, 2017, February, there was like very revolution, the revolution was made in the Docker containers, like how would you create an image? Because previously, there was nothing like multi-staging. If you would like to create a multi-stage-ish image, you would have to use the builder pattern, let's say, builder Docker file pattern, which is basically something like you have one Docker file, you build the image from it, then you have a bash script that takes the artifacts from the first image, put it in another image, and then you have like your full production image. So that's basically it. But after that, we have the multi-stage, which most of you probably are familiar with now, because, well, that's something in the Sylius standard since 2018. We have this very special commit, very special pull request done by this person. I don't want to like pronounce, I mean, I won't try to pronounce this. Yeah? Okay, nice. And there's also a chance that anyone from this contributor is in here in a SyliusCon. That would be very interesting. If so, like, you can raise a hand or something like that. But unfortunately, nah. So what happened? The Docker file with all of the configs was introduced in the Sylius standard repository, so we had everything in it. And that was the state that's currently we are working with Sylius standard and the Docker. So that is the end of the chapter, because we talked a little bit about the past. And I decided to do some math and show since like Sylius standard was created, there was 351 pull requests merged. 45 of it were Docker related. So since 2018, we had like 45 contributions regarding the Docker. So that's not the best. That's probably most of the time the Docker were failing, there were no tests, and so on, so on. It was basically not up to date. There was no person who were contributing to that, but we're gonna change it. Yeah. And another thing was that it's time actually to put Sylius on a stamp and see if it can scale. So I kind of decided to write down everything regarding what actually the Sylius itself as a platform, as a framework needs to have to be deployed in the production. I mean, fairly easy things, right? We have the web server as an Nginx. We have the PHP server, like a PHP FPM. We have relational database, which is MariaDB or MySQL for us, and the way to run cron jobs. And actually, you can run the cron jobs recently, like 2 weeks ago, I merged the pull request regarding how to run the cron jobs by default in a Sylius standard. So that's something. That's not so, I would say, I'm not delighted with this solution, but it works. And another thing, like we need to run the Symfony Messenger worker for catalog promotions. And we don't have that either. I mean, there's a pull request created, and maybe it's going to be merged. Who knows, who knows. And there's another thing, like we need to store the logs, we need to store the session, we need to store the media. Yeah, and currently we store everything in files. So if you would like to go on a scale, first of all, you don't want to store your logs in a file. Let's try with that. Just go and send all of the logs into the stdr or stdout stream output. So that's the thing. And regarding session, you also shouldn't put the sessions inside of volumes that are shared around your containers. So that's another thing that we have to change in a Sylius standard. And there's also place to store media, which was complicated in 1.11, but in 1.12 we changed this system, and there's fly system bundle used or component in a Sylius. So you can very easily change the store media from the local volume to, for example, some other storage, like from Amazon or something like that. So after I gathered all of these requirements, I had this very interesting, let's say, proof of concept, because there are basically now two popular ways to run your application at scale. So one is a Kubernetes, which is very big and, let's say, maybe not expensive, but requires a lot of knowledge. And to be honest, I did not have that knowledge at this point. So I decided, okay, we have the Docker Compose. Let's try to use the Docker Swarm mode. And there's also I can test the Docker Swarm mode inside of the public and free to test platform. So that's cool. So what I did, one thing is, I don't know if you've ever played with Docker Swarm, so I'm just gonna go quickly. What it does, you basically have to change your VPS, let's say, your physical machines into the swarm mode, and then you can link it as a managers or as a workers and so on. That's a little bit complicated, but what's important, there are managers and there are workers and they are linked together, and this is the swarm. If something dies, there's another thing that's gonna be run up. So when it comes to the API, you basically have to add the deploy key and then specify some of the stuff. It doesn't matter for now, you don't have to read it, but I just put it into for some reference. What's important, you cannot build the image with Docker Swarm. You have to already provide the image with tag and so on. You have to put it into the container registry or something like that. You cannot use the build key. So what I did, I tested it, built the image, published it on a container registry, and decided, okay, so let's run it. But let's run it slow. So each of the containers had only one replica for me at the beginning. Let's start slow. And it went great. Basically, Sylius started, there was available shop API and so on, so on. You could do whenever you want in a very simple way. But what's next? Okay, but we want to scale. So we want to have multiple replicas. Let's start with 3 replicas, because the numbers should be always odd. And that's the recommendation from the Docker Swarm. So what happened when I tried to run up 3 replicas? Well, it happened something like that. If you are aware of the current flow of a Docker in the Sylius standard, yeah, let me get back a little bit. You know that we start by running the migrations. I mean, first of all, we wait for the MySQL to be up and ready, and then we run the migrations in the database. And what happened? Each of them started to try to run the migration. The first one executed first migration. The second one decided that, okay, the first migration is already there, but I don't have it locally, so something happened wrong and failed. And then the third one also failed because he saw, okay, I want to run my first migration, and it's already there, so something's wrong. I don't know what to do, and the first one actually also failed because he saw, okay, something else is trying to run this second migration, and I cannot like proceed still. So every container actually we're restarting and so on because of the config. There is like the restart policy, right, on failure. And that wasn't very cool. And that's why I had the conclusion that the current Sylius standard Docker cannot scale. And that's a thing that you can basically, I mean, it's still up to date because it cannot scale. But there is a remedy. And we're gonna talk about the remedy, we're gonna talk about the future. So I talk about a little bit about this very special current flow. Created the graph, maybe the graph will later be introduced into the documentation. And what else? We're gonna change it. How are we gonna change it? Because in a Kubernetes, we would have something like the one-time jobs. There is no such thing in the Docker Compose. Actually, orchestration of a containers in a Docker environment is much more, it doesn't exist, to be honest. Right, so what we're gonna do? We're gonna create another container. We're gonna call it a migration. And the migration container is gonna, run the migration. I mean, it's gonna wait for the MySQL, but yeah, it's gonna run the migrations. And only after that, the worker container, the cron container, the PHP container, or the web container whatsoever, is gonna start and be up and running. So we're gonna basically fix the issue. But to be honest, that's not like the full remedy. Because if you want to scale it, I mean, okay, you will then be able to use, for example, a Docker Swarm, but that's not like a long way to go. You cannot, I mean, no, that's not the way to go. But yeah, let's get next. And we're gonna get now in the third chapter. And the third chapter is little about me. I'm gonna like put my ego on a stand. And we're gonna talk all about how I started my job in Sylius a little bit, because I joined in March, and my previous employment was in the SaaS company. So basically, after that, I had a very interesting way of thinking on how the Docker actually should be looking for. And for me, it was okay, Docker has to be optimized for the production. So I joined the Sylius, okay, guys, we need to create a Docker for our open source project, so on, because there's no way to be, I mean, I can't work basically because I don't have anything installed, like composers, PHP, etc., etc. So I created the Docker with the production-ish way to be. And what happened? Well, it took me a couple of months to actually find out that maybe I was wrong. Maybe. Well, what happened is like I actually found out that maybe Sylius don't have the kind of production I was thinking it has. What happened is actually we have different kind of like clients, like open source is like developers. You are our clients. And what's more important than having very nice production configuration, like having a developer experience, that's great. So I basically failed it. When it comes to the open source Docker configuration, I can say that I failed it. Boom. But, so I need to create like the backup plan, like the plan, how can I make my, how can I make it right? So I kind of decided, that's going to be news for the like Sylius team also. I kind of decided to create a proof of concept because I don't want to, I actually would like to reimage the way we are working in a Sylius. So something like Sylius development kit, maybe something like that. Basically one thing. We're going to have like Git submodules with the Sylius, the plus, the other bundles, and so on that you need to be working on. Because basically, most of them require very similar resources when it comes to the configuration, and you need to run basically same things, like the behead, the PHP stan, the PHP spec, PHP unit, and so on, so on. That's shareable. And also, you need toolings. So we need the MySQL, obviously. We also need Postgres, Postgres database, because we want to also support it maybe in the future. But also like the Blackfire to check our performance and the Chrome for the beta test. So that's basically the idea, and who knows, maybe it will age well. That's a change. So now it's gonna be, I'm gonna tell you a little bit, maybe more complicated story about how I wanted to solve a very nice issue. Because the beta test, I mean, Sylius has a lot of beta tests, like around 30K or something like that. It takes, I don't know, in a pipeline like 16 minutes to run them. And we have like different types of them, like CLI, and the one that I really struggle with are the JavaScript ones. And what's going on with them? Well, basically currently, the team works a little bit like that. So you run the beta tests, and there's like the Chrome locally installed, which then runs the requests, and the JavaScripts are loaded in there. So I said, okay, I get the requirements, let me get that and Dockerize it. Well, what happened? I decided that I need a Chrome. That's a very interesting thing, so okay. So I have a Ubuntu containers and so on, and I need to find the Chrome container. So okay, let's start maybe with installing it. Let's find if the Google is able to have the solution for that. And nope, the official Google does not, how to say it, it does not support the Linux. I mean, that's obvious, yeah? We have the Chromium for that. Okay, so let's try to install the Chromium. So when I found out how to install the Chromium for the Docker and make it run, I decided that that's not the way totally. And after all of that changes, I would still not have like full, I wouldn't be sure if that still works, so I would wait a long time. But I found something. I found the open source container, and that's the Alpine-based Chrome that can be run in a headless mode. And what happened? Well, I found it, and it does not support ARM. And at this point, I had only like the M1 MacBook, and was like, that's strange, but I know I can. I can emulate the platform in the Docker Compose, right? Because we can like retag it and run it as a, for example, like Linux AMD 64 instead of ARM. And it doesn't work. So I decided, okay, I found the guy that was maintaining the library, the image container. I messaged him, hey guy, dear friend, we basically are Sylius, and I'm looking for a solution to run the Alpine Chrome in the headless mode, in the containers, and you know we have the Behat test, and there's a lot of them, etc., etc. Okay, so I got the feedback. That's very nice because I'm using the M1 MacBook, and I'm gonna go right away and find a solution for that. So it took 3 months. I was waiting 3 months for that. I wasn't expecting that, to be sure, but that's how I found out that in open source, soon means a little bit longer than like a couple of weeks. So that's very interesting for me. And after all of that, there was a success. There was available container image in the ARM, and easy. Now I have to run it, I have the configuration and everything. We have to test it, right? Well, to be honest, not really. So when I found out is that the Chrome driver that we are currently having does not resolve the names of the Docker containers. So what I have to do is somehow put the static IP addresses. And I know I can do that because I know Docker networks, and I decided to just check it, just check out like the proof of concept. I know it's not gonna be like ideal solution, but maybe somehow it's gonna solve the issue. And I was able to run it, to be honest. I was able to run the Behat JavaScript tests in the Docker with our configuration, with static IP addresses. And I was very happy about it. and I talked with guys, and hey, I can run it, and so on. I will create a pull request, etc., etc. Let's have fun. So what happened after that? We tried to run it on Ubuntu, and guess what? It failed. And the tests were failing again. So I basically decided, okay, maybe that's not the time to do it. I was basically a quit rage. It was quit rage. Let's be honest. So I decided to wait. Hey guys, maybe we should speed up the Symfony Panther project and let's try to migrate it. So that was the idea. But now it's time for the chapter 4, which is the orchestration. I'll talk about the Docker Swarm and so on. And now I have a question for you again. Who uses Kubernetes in the production? Raise a hand. Couple of you. And what else are you using? That's going to be a very interesting question for later. But for after party, maybe a Docker Swarm, maybe VPS. Well, that's very interesting because when it comes to orchestration, we also don't have much of the knowledge in that area. We have little of competences. We almost have like the out-of-the-box production environments that is scalable and so on. But for me, it's like we need to do something. What's gonna be our strategy in the next year? What's gonna be after we're gonna achieve these Sylius at scale? Like everyone's gonna be okay. So now I can create. I mean, I'm making a lot of money out of Sylius shop, and it's very great. I need to find another solution. So I know we have a lot of competences when it comes to packages, with releases, with tagging, and so on. And one of the solution is Helm. Actually, the Helm charts. So what's that? That's the package manager for Kubernetes configurations. And it basically works like Composer, but for the Kubernetes files. And we could do that. I mean, we actually know our requirements, like we need the cron job, we need the worker, and so on, so on. And that's really doable. And what else? Well, if we're gonna do that, then we are one step further of creating like the maybe full platform when we don't only focus on the developers, but also on the aspects of DevOps and the cloud and so on, so on. So I decided to check out what's going on in this area. So this is basically the packages for the Helm charts, the artifact hub. I put there like Symfony or a Sylius, and guess what? When it comes to Sylius, now there's only one, only one package, and it's mine, and don't use it, because that was a proof of concept, and I wanted to see if there are any people that actually getting in there and putting the Sylius. So it has like a couple of views in a month, something like that. And I was kind of interested why it works that way. And I talked with my friend that is DevOps, and he basically says, okay, those config files are very easy. That's one thing. And second of all, when he's working, he has his own like repositories. He puts the templates for itself, and he's not sharing that. So we could easily, I mean fairly easily, publish the package of the Helm and Kubernetes configurations, and then publish it here. And what else? Well, we're gonna be only one solution in this area. So we're gonna be one step closer to having like the DevOps environment. And there is actually like my future idea. So, well, we would have like Sylius standard application, like everything that developer needs to be run and so on, so on. And we can like step outside a little bit and see it a little bit further and see that maybe there is like the Dockerized, the application container with everything required to run the actual application. But those are 3 different layers, right? And there should be like another layer that is very close to the infrastructure. So like the monitoring, the logging, and so on, so on. And for example, the Helm chart. So that is basically my idea for like the orchestration in a long term. If that's gonna succeed, I don't know. Is that gonna be successful? I don't know. If that's gonna age well, I don't know. So that's basically it for me. But if you would like to help me, for example, in creating like proof of concept when it comes to the Helm chart or something like that, feel free to contact me. I'm available on a Sylius developer Slack, and you have basically every info regarding that in here. So thank you very much.